Welcome to the MOOCs course Mechanical Unit Operations. The title of this lecture is Flotation. So, in the flotation what we do, we take the differences in the surface characteristics, and then considering those differences in the surface characteristics, we are going to do the separation of these solids from the mixture. So, here we get natural ores in big lumps kind of things. Whatever the ores that we get from the nature, we have in a bigger size in general. What we do the size reduction of these natural resources, so that their size is in between 20 mesh to 200 mesh size only average. Largest one is passing through the 20 mesh, and then smallest one is passing through 200 mesh. So, whatever the material of this size, that will be of sufficiently smaller size, so that the surface characteristics may have a kind of significant effect, and then separation takes place. So, now when you take these natural resources from earth, whatever you get, right, when you crush them into the smaller fraction, there is a kind of mud and another kind of impurities are also there. Let us say you have a active mineral ore and then gangue present in that mixture finally. Okay. So, now you wanted to separate active mineral ore from that gangue. So, how to do based on the surface characteristics differences, that is what we are going to see in flotation. So, here what we do, this mixture whatever is there, so that is having the active ore plus gangue, that you take in a container in which there is a kind of water, in which you are already having a water. So, you take a container in which water is there, in that container you pour this solid mixture which is having active ore plus gangue. So, you are interested in this active ore whatever mineral is there. So, active mineral whatever is there, that you wanted to separate from this gangue, right. Okay. So, then what you do, when you mix it here, so they will maybe suspended or settle based on the density differences of this water and all that. So, then in this container you have some kind of provision to generate air bubbles. Okay. You have some provisions. So, we are going to see how to generate and all those things, that is a different thing. So, now this bubbles will form in this container along with this solid and then water phase. Now, there is a kind of bubble phase also, right. You have a provision, these bubbles are generated such a way that they are generated in a bigger size, bigger than this 20 and then 200 mesh size, right. So, that is bubbles are much bigger size than the solid or active mineral that you wanted to separate. So, because of the difference in the surface characteristics of these two material, only the minerals would be attached on the surface of these bubbles like this. Okay. Okay, because of the differences in the surface characteristics, only active ore whatever is there, that will be attached on the surface, and then initially bubble was only one phase. Now, the solids are also absorbed on the bubble surface. So, then the average density of this bubble is going to be changing, right. Initially air bubble density, air density whatever is there, that is there. Now, onto this bubble surface solids, active ores are being attached. So, then their average density is going to be different, right. So, whatever is the density, average density of bubble absorbed with solid is there, that average density is lower than the density of water, that is lower than the density of the water in general. So, then what happens, because of that one, these bubbles will raise up to the interface, and then when they raise, they carry the particles attached onto the surface. So, these bubbles are taken out as a kind of overflow. So, these bubbles plus solids are these bubbles which are on their surface, solids are attached, that comes onto the surface because of the less average density compared to the water, and then that froth whatever is there, that is having the bubbles and solids, that will be taken as a kind of overflow from the top, and then washed off for the solids, pure solids or almost clear solids which are not having any kind of impurities. Okay. But now there is a gangue also in this one. So, mud etc., that kind of other material is also there. Their surface characteristics are entirely different than the solid surface characteristics or active mineral surface characteristics. So, because of that one, this gangue is going to be absorbed by the water or absorbed onto the water, or this gangue surface whatever is there, that will be covered by the water, and then the water density is higher than the bubbles and solids, that average density of bubbles and solids. So, the water is going to along with this gangue is going to sink. So, whatever this gangue surface is there, that is now attached with a kind of liquid layer. So, that is going to sink, so that we can have a kind of a gangue at the bottom as a kind of impurity, okay, like this. And then whatever the solids or active ore that is there, that we get as a kind of pure or almost pure solids from the top through the froth. So, this is the basic process. So, here surface characteristics we are saying. So, what are the surface characteristics? And then we are saying that bubbles generation, how these bubbles are being generated, right. And then we are talking about the froth formation agents are there or something like that, those kind of thing, all those details related to these flotation aspects that we are going to see. So, when this froth is going to the surface, there is some kind of energy losses, etc. What are those energy losses? All those things we are going to see now here. Okay, we are going to see all those basics. So, this is the basic process that happens in a kind of a flotation. So, then how does it happen and how design can be modified to make this kind of a flotation process effective, that is what we are going to say. How to enhance the froth generation or froth development, those kind of things we have to see. Sometimes froth onto the bubbles solids are strongly adsorbed. So, you do not want, because you have to dissolve those solids from the bubble surface also. So, what kind of depressants are required. So, those kind of things also we are going to see. What are the kind of collectors, promoters, etc. are required, so that to enhance the process, all those details we are going to see in this particular lecture. So, flotation, in this process one solid is separated from another by floating one of them at or on the surface of fluid. In modern flotation, solid particles are continuously agitated in water, upon which a thick layer of froth is maintained, and because of differences in surface characteristics, one solid more readily absorbs water phase, becomes surrounded by water and sinks, as in the case example that mineral ore, that example. In that case gangue, what happens, it is readily absorbed by water phase and then surrounded by water and then sinks, okay. Whereas the other solid more readily absorbs on air bubble surface and becomes at least partially surrounded or covered by the air. So, let us say in this example, whatever the active mineral that is there in the present in the ore, that is being easily absorbed onto the air surface, air bubble surface, and then partially covered or totally covered by these bubbles, and so that can easily be separated. So, this is what the difference, because of the surface characteristics differences, one solid phase sinks in the container and then another solid phase floats along with the bubbles and then taken as a kind of a separate phase, pure phase, like that. So, average or bulk density of solid and absorbed air bubbles is less than that of water, and then because of that one, whole mass of air and solid floats to the surface to form a mineralized froth, which continuously overflows the side of the vessel in which we are doing this process. Flotation is capable of separating materials regardless of their density differences, because separation by froth flotation depends upon the surface characteristics of the material. Whatever the gangue and then solid individual, if you take, their individual densities may be higher than the water density in general, right. So, then when you take them and mix them with the water, so then both gangue and then solid particles settling down. So, then there is no separation because of the density, but because of introducing by this froth or air bubble kind of thing. So, these bubble sizes are bigger, and then onto which the solids, active solids, which we wanted to make their concentration higher, so they will be attached. So, then the average density of this bubble and the adsorbed solid is going to be lower than the water density, and then because of that one then separation of these solids as a overflow takes place. So, that is the difference. So, that is the reason the separation here is not based on the density difference, it is because of the difference in the surface characteristics. Because of that surface characteristics differences only, the average density of the bubble phase or the froth plus solids is going to be less than the density of water, then only the separation is taking place. So, though the density is coming into the picture, basically it is the surface characteristics, because of that the average density of froth and solid is going to become less than the density of water and being separated as a kind of overflow from the top. Flotation cell was initially developed in mineral industries, and over 80% of mineral concentration is accomplished by flotations in most of the mineral industries. Flotation is extended into other fields also. Some application, if you see, separating the hulls of wheat from the kernels, printers ink from reclaimed newspaper pulp, whatever the old newspaper is there, that you shred and then reduce their sizes to the smaller ones, smaller sizes, and then if you do the same flotation process, whatever the ink is there, that you can recover and then further you can use, whereas the pulp, cellulose, etc. kind of thing, that can be taken as a kind of a wastage. So, that way the flotation is also found application in this printing industries. Potassium chloride from sodium chloride, etc. are some of the examples where flotation is also extended to the other fields. Flotation is performed on finely divided material, usually varying in the range from 20 mesh to under 200 mesh, because if the particle size, solid particle which you wanted to separate, if their size is smaller, much smaller, then surface characteristics have the stronger influence, and then the separation along with the froth of those solids can take place easily. That is the reason you need to have a kind of finer particles. Okay. So, in the flotation what happens, the particles are smaller, whereas the bubbles are the bigger size. Because of importance of surface conditions and necessity of air bubbles supporting the solid in the froth, the separation is taking place. So, what is the principle of floatability? We have seen that experimentally how the separation takes place, that we have seen, right, but what is the floatability principle in general, that we are going to see. What happens in general, like that finely crushed very small fine solid particles are taken along with the bigger bubble size kind of thing and then floating on the surface. What happens, what is that principle that is occurring in this floatability, that we are going to see. Flotation depends upon the relative adsorption or wetting of the solid surface by the fluid. This in turn is controlled by surface or internal energy, of which interfacial tension is the intensive factor. So, the surface characteristics whatever been discussing, this is the one, this interfacial tension is the very important intensive factor that is deciding the performance of flotation cell. Any surface such as that between water and air resists extension and behaves exactly as if it were in tension. It is this interfacial tension which tends to make small masses of water in air take on a spherical shape or become drops, right. Sometimes what we see in the air, the water droplets are forming and then settling down because the water density is higher than the air density, right. But this water, why it is not falling as a kind of sheet, why it is forming a kind of a drop, because of this interfacial tension. Okay. Interfacial tension, in other word, it is a kind of a resistance to extension of the surface, whatever the resistance force is there, that is interfacial force. So, then this interfacial tension, what it is doing, it does not allow the material to stretch, rather it will so since it is not allowing to stretch, the material what it will try to take a different from where the energy is going to be the lower, which is having lower surface area can be developed. So, when the water droplet that is forming, that spherical droplet whatever the surface is there, that is having the lower surface for the same amount of material. So, same volume of the material that is considered. So, because of that one, rather being stretching out, it is forming a kind of droplet. Okay. So, it is this interfacial tension which tends to make small masses of water in air take on a spherical shape or becomes drops. Other way also, if you see, similarly small masses of air in water take on a spherical shape or become bubbles, as sphere has the least surface per unit volume. This is the reason. because whether it is drop formation, whether the droplet formation or whether it is the bubble formation, droplet formation in air or bubble formation in water, whatever this spherical shape that take, because their interfacial tension is such that it is not allowing the stretching of this material in the other phase. So, this material what it tries to take a kind of a shape which is having the least possible surface per unit volume, and then spherical shape is the one which is having the least possible surface area per unit volume. That is the reason this material water in air takes a kind of a droplet shape, and then air in water takes a kind of bubble shape in a kind of spherical form. Okay. So, interfacial tension can be measured as force resisting the extension of the interface. So, this interfacial tension, it does not allow the material to extend the interface. So, because of that one, that material what it will try to take the form whichever is having the least surface area per unit volume. So, interfacial can be measured as force resisting the extension of surface or extension of interface. Its relative values may be determined by angle formed between the surfaces or interface when 3 or more faces are in contact and at equilibrium. So, how much is this interfacial tension, that we wanted to know, right. Now, this material, right, let us say whatever is there, rather forming a kind of sheet like this, it is taking a kind of droplet form because of the this interfacial tension, because that interfacial tension is resisting or offering the resisting force for this water not to extend its surface. So, then this water what we is trying, it is trying to take a shape which is having the lower surface area, right. So, what is that magnitude of that interfacial tension that causing here, that if you wanted to know, you need to know the contact angle, you need to know the angle formed between the surfaces or interface when 3 or more faces are in contact and at equilibrium. That angle is known as the kind of contact angle. Okay. So, that is very important one. So, in general, the sum of components of the interfacial tensions equal to 0. If you have a more than 3 faces, 3 or more forces are there. So, more than 3 or 4 components of this interfacial tensions may be there. So, when you take the sum of the components of the interfacial tensions, that becomes equals to 0, because that is at equilibrium. If one of the face is a solid representing a rigid plane surface and the other two phases are fluids, the balance of forces parallel to surface of the solid gives this expression. Like let us say you have a kind of a solid surface like this, and there is a liquid and then gas, all three are in contact. So, let us at this point if you wanted to know the contact angle. So, then at this point what is happening, how the interfacial forces are acting, that you wanted to know at this point. So, at this point let us say contact angle is theta. We are going to see how to measure this one, contact angle is theta. So, whatever the surface tension in this direction, SG direction is there, that should be balanced by the surface tension or interfacial tension in the other two direction, GL and then SL, like this. So, SG is the interface, rather saying the direction, in general it is a kind of interface between solid and then gas phase. So, that interface between these two phases, there is an interface, that interface having some amount of interfacial tension. So, that interfacial tension is nothing but gamma Sg. Now, here the liquid and then gas, both two phases are there, and then there is a kind of interface between these two, and there is a kind of interface between these two. Okay. So, because of this presence of interface, what is there, that interfacial tension whatever is there, that is gamma Lg or Gl. Okay. And then here we have a interface between liquid and then solid phase. So, there is a interface between this liquid and solid phase. So, whatever the interfacial tension is there, that is nothing but gamma SL. And then this interface GL is at angle theta with interface SL, right. Because of that one, this gamma Lg should be multiplied by this cos theta. So, now by the directions, if you see, or you can easily understand by the direction, this is in this direction and these two are in the other direction. So, whatever gamma Sg is there, that should be balanced by the gamma Sl plus gamma Lg cos theta. This cos theta is coming because of this contact angle theta between these three phases, like gas, liquid and solid, right. This angle is this gas liquid interface and then this is a solid phase. At these three phases, whatever the angle is there, contact angle, that is theta. So, because of that one, this component will be having gamma Lg cos theta. Okay. So, or otherwise, as the sum of the all interfacial tensions for this kind of situation should be 0, then you can write gamma Sg minus gamma Sl minus gamma Lg cos theta is equals to 0, which is nothing but gamma Sg is equals to gamma Sl plus gamma Lg cos theta. Okay. So, here gamma is the interfacial tension and theta is the contact angle. So, now how to measure the contact angle? Okay. So, now what you do here, you take a solid surface, solid phase like this. So, contact angle may be determined by placing a polished specimen of solid in the bottom of a flat sided vessel, right. This flat sided vessel like this, you take a solid surface like this. Okay. And then depending on the conditions, it is desired to measure. Surface of solid may be clean or it may be carrying a film of adsorbed material. Okay. It may be clean or it may be having a kind of adsorbed material, depending on what conditions, for what case you wanted to measure these conditions. If you wanted to measure the contact angle for the pure solid phase, then there should not be any kind of film on this one. If you wanted to find out the contact angle of the film, then the solid surface should be carrying a kind of adsorbed film material. Okay. Then liquid to be investigated is poured into the vessel until solid is at least 1 inch under the liquid. So, what you do, you take this solid or you place this solid in such a way that in the liquid phase for which you wanted to do this investigation of the contact angle, that you place it here, so that solid is at least 1 inch under the liquid. Solid is at least 1 inch under the liquid. So, then this is the liquid interface. This is all liquid kind of thing. Okay. Then a flat ended capillary is introduced perpendicularly over the solid and air is cautiously blown through the capillary until the bubble makes contact with the solid. So, this is a capillary you have. So, you take a capillary here and then perpendicularly like this you put it and then cautiously blow air through it, so that a kind of a bubble forms, and then blow this air until this bubble makes contact with the solid. Let us say it is, if the bubble is forming like this, okay, and then you can see here between this solid phase and then this bubble phase, there is no contact, and then liquid is coming and then occupying this one between these two phases. Okay. Between this bubble phase and then solid phase, there is no contact, and then whatever the interfacial distance between these two there, that is occupied by the liquid. What does it mean by here? There is no contact between the bubble and then solid phase, or all three phases are not in contact with each other. So, then contact angle is 0. So, that the contact angle is 0. So, for this solid surface, when you take these three phases in a kind of combination as a system, then contact angle is 0, okay, because it is not attached. It is not attached to the solid surface. So, if the contact angle is 0, that means solid is not being attached to the bubble surface, or bubble is not making any contact with the solid. That means it is not going to float, and then the flotation is not going to be effective for this case. Okay. So, indirectly, if you have the more contact angle, more contact between the solid and then bubble phase will take place, and then more floatability of that material will be there, and then that can easily taken as a overflow through the froth from the top. As a froth from the top, it can be taken as a kind of overflow. Okay. So, that is the case. Now, you take the other case where there is a kind of a contact angle, right. So, let us say the same solid surface now, whether it is clean or attached with a kind of film, depends on for which you are measuring the this contact angle. Let us say if you are measuring contact angle for pure solid surface, so that surface should be pure and there should not be any material attached to the surface. If you wanted to measure the contact angle for some foreign material, then that material has to be attached as a kind of thin layer on the surface, solid surface, and then similar process we have to do. So, let us say this solid surface is there, and then whatever the liquid you wanted to measure for which you wanted to do this thing, so that you pour. Okay. So, that you pour on this one, so that until the solid surface whatever is there, that should be at least 1 inch under the liquid. So, this distance between solid surface and then liquid surface should be more than 1 inch. This distance should be more than 1 inch, right. Okay. So, now it is like this liquid is initially like this. Initially liquid was occupied this area also. Okay. Now, in this one you take a capillary and then perpendicularly you place like this, and then carefully you blow air so that the bubble forms, and then you blow air continuously until this bubble reaches the solid surface and makes the contact. So, now if the bubble is making a contact with the solid surface, so now here this liquid, gas and solid, liquid, this is the liquid phase, this is the gas phase, and this is the solid phase. All three phases are making a contact at this point. All three phases are making a contact at this point. So, if you draw a tangent here, whatever this angle is there, that we call it as a contact angle. That we call as a contact angle, and then this contact angle is a kind of very important requirement in order to know the interfacial tension. Okay. This is how you can measure the contact angle for a given system where 3 or more phases are in contact with each other and then are at equilibrium. Okay. So, now you can see the difference here. When there is no contact, or when there is a contact angle is 0, this all three phases are not coming into the contact at any point. That is what it mean by. So, this is gas phase and then liquid phase. There is a contact between liquid phase and gas phase, right, but there is no contact with the solid phase and then gas phase. Liquid and solid phase also there is a contact here, right. Liquid phase and then solid phase also there is a contact, liquid phase and then gas phase also there is a contact between these two, right, but there is no contact between gas and solid phase. That means there is no point that all three phases are contacting each other. So, that means the contact angle is 0, or otherwise between the solid and then gas, the liquid is coming into the picture, and then that is there is no point that all three phases are contacting with each other. If the gas is making some contact and then being attached to the solid surface, so then this is the point where liquid, solid, gas are contacting with each other, and at this point if you draw a tangent, whatever the angle, that means that is the contact angle. If solid is easily and completely wetted by liquid, then liquid exists as a skin between solid and air, and there is no point of contact of three phases. Then angle formed by a tangent at the apparent point of the contact between the three phases is 0, that is contact angle is 0 in such case. If surface of the solid is not completely wetted, liquid is forced to recede to an equilibrium position where forces of three interfaces are in balance. Then a tangent to gas liquid interface at this point forms the angle theta defined as contact angle, It is always measured through the more dense phase. So, through the more dense phase we measure it. The angle may be measured by projection of a magnified shadow of the bubble on the screen. So, this is how we do the contact angle measurements. In flotation, a solid particle is attached to a bubble in the same way as solid and bubble are in contact as shown in the picture. Then only difference is that the solid is extremely small and then air bubble is relatively large. That is what happens compared to the previous experiment what we have seen. So, in flotation a solid particle is attached to a bubble in the same way as solid and bubble are in contact in the previous figure, that contact angle measurement that we have seen. But what is the difference here? In the previous figure we have a bigger solid surface and then smaller bubble kind of thing, but in the flotation what we have a kind of bigger bubbles and then small solid particles are attached to these bigger bubbles. Force of gravity and agitation tend to dislodge solid particle from the bubble. If the contact angle is small, liquid will advance over the surface of the solid and then surface forces holding the solid and bubble together are weaker. As I said, if the contact between the gas bubble and then solid is not there, so then obviously the separation will not take place in the flotation. So, that means smaller the contact angle, weaker is the interaction between the solid and then bubble. Okay. So, then weaker would be the performance of flotation. So, if you wanted to have a kind of better flotation performance, you should make sure that contact angle for these three phases should be large enough. A large contact angle means easy floatability. When a solid particle attaches itself to a bubble, there is a loss in surface energy. That loss, let us say, minus delta E per unit area of surface sigma equal to the loss in surface tension. So, that is you have these three phases, the same picture again. So, there is a kind of solid surface like this, there is a kind of liquid and then gas phases, all of them are in contact with each other at this point. Right, at this point they are in contact with each other, all three are in contact. So, at this point if you draw a tangent, you know that whatever the angle is there, that is the contact angle theta L, right. So, when this solid particle attaches itself to a bubble, there is a loss in surface energy. Whatever that loss in surface energy is there, that should be balanced by the loss in surface tension. So, that is what we do. Let us say the loss in surface energy for this point, if you see at the contact point, so that is, let us say delta E, right, that should be balanced by the loss in surface tension. So, surface tension in this direction between this solid and gas phase is nothing but gamma Sg multiplied by the unit area of surface between the solid and liquid, that is, let us say delta sigma Sg, right. And then the interfacial tension between solid and liquid phases is nothing but gamma Sl and then multiplied by the surface area between these two interfaces, that is delta sigma Sl, plus whatever this one, that is interfacial tension between this gas and liquid phases is nothing but gamma Lg multiplied by the surface area delta sigma Lg. Previously what we have seen, like this gamma Sg is equals to gamma Sl plus gamma Lg cos theta. Following these directions, following these directions, right, what we can understand here, we can understand delta sigma Sl is equals to delta sigma Lg is equals to minus delta sigma Sg. That is what we can understand here. So, when you apply this relation here in this above equation, then you have minus delta E divided by delta sigma Sg is equals to gamma Sl plus gamma Lg minus gamma Sg, that is what you get. But we have already seen that gamma Sg is equals to gamma Sl plus gamma Lg cos theta. So, in place of gamma Sg, you substitute here and then simplify, then you get minus delta E by delta sigma Sg is equals to gamma Lg multiplied by 1 minus cos theta, 1 minus cos theta. So, this is the energy loss or loss in surface energy when the solid particles are being attached themselves to bubbles. So, when a single if you take a kind of single solid particle, when a single particle is being attached itself to a bubble, obviously there is a kind of loss of surface energy. That loss of surface energy you can calculate by this expression, because that loss of surface energy must be balanced by the loss in the surface tension. So, when you do this balance and then simplify, you can get this energy, loss in surface energy. So, this loss in energy minus delta E is a measure of wettability of the solid phase by air, and therefore, an indication of the floatability. It represents the work required to separate the air from a unit surface of solid. So, after froth whatever you have collected, this much of energy you have to provide, so that the solids are being separated from the air bubbles. So, that is about the basic flotation process, and then digging out what is the floatability principle. Now, we see some of the flotation agents. So, collectors and promoters are the two kind of agents are there. These are a kind of some kind of chemicals that we add to the mixture, so that they will form a kind of layer on the solid particle, so that they can easily adsorb onto the bubbles. Let us say the surface characteristics of the solid which you wanted to separate from the other solids, other impurities, that surface characteristics are not good enough that these solids can easily adsorb onto the bubbles. Then what you can do, you can add some kind of foreign material, right, so that this material will form a kind of a layer onto these solid surfaces, and then make the surface so that they modify the surface characteristics of the solids such a way that they can easily be adsorbed onto the bubble surface, and then easily can be separated from the remaining solid particles, right. So, these foreign material whatever you add, so that the surface characteristics of the solids gets improved and then easily attached to the bubble surface. These foreign materials are known as the flotation agents, and then if they are forming a one molecular thick kind of layer onto the solids, then we call them as a kind of promoters. If they are forming a kind of multiple layer of material as a thin material in a kind of multiple molecular thickness, then we call them as a kind of collectors. So, what are the in general promoters and collectors are available, that we see now. Collectors and promoters are reagents which are adsorbed on the surface of solid as a very thin film, and because of their properties thereby increase the contact angle, right. So, when you attach this reagent onto the solid surface, whatever the contact angle of the pure solid is there, that will be increased because of this adding these collectors or promoters, and then contact angle is increased, that means they will be easily attached to the bubble surface, and then floatability will increase, the separation would be better. Promoter is a agent forming films one molecule thick in general, such as sodium xanthate, which is adsorbed on lead sulphide and oriented with the xanthate radical toward the lead and the hydrocarbon part outward. This gives the surface of a solid a characteristic approaching that of a hydrocarbon which is not wetted by the water. If that is not wetted by the water, that will be easily wetted by the air bubble, and then can be separated as a kind of overflow from the top of the flotation cell or flotation equipment. If the adsorbed material forms films several molecules thick, it is called a collector. In general, petroleum is a good example of true collector, but sometimes what happens, this forms a very greasy kind of froth that forms, and then removing that greasy kind of collectors after the separation of the solids is again kind of painful. So, one should be careful about the amount of petroleum should be added as a kind of collector, so that to improve the floatability. But this petroleum has the disadvantage of making a greasy froth containing a sticky mass of bubbles, difficult to break down in the subsequent sedimentation operation after these solids are being separated from the other solids as a kind of froth. So, whatever the froth that is containing the solid particles. So, that froth etc. are becoming strong by adding this petroleum. So, the interaction between the solids and then bubble is very strong because of this greasy froth by adding this petroleum. So, these are the promoters and collectors. It is enhancing the surface characteristics, but after that you need to separate them. You need to separate them because you do not want those foreign material in subsequent operations. In some kind of subsequent operations with the solids, even minute traces of these promoters or collectors may be very disadvantageous. Okay? So, that is the reason one should be careful about adding the petroleum, and then how much petroleum amount should be added, one should be very careful about them. Pine oil generally classed as a frothing agent, but also acts as a collector and is not so sticky as cryolic acid and petroleum. Common promoters used in mineral flotation are xanthates, aerofloats and thiocarbamylides. Quantity of these promoter reagents used in general about 0.05 to 0.15 lb per ton of solids treated. You can see how small traces, how small quantities are being added in general. 0.05 lb to 0.15 lb per ton of solids. Such small amounts one has to add in order to get the promoters, that is forming one layer of one molecular thick layer. Somewhat larger quantities of collectors up to about 1 lb per ton may also be used. If you wanted to have a kind of many layers of this foreign material being form a kind of many molecular thing thicker, then you can add up to 1 lb per ton of this material. So, then you can treat them as a kind of collectors. Greater the length of non-polar or hydrocarbon part of the molecule, more the surface approach that of paraffin and greater the contact angle. Now, we see frothing agents. So, previously whatever the promoters or collectors are there, they are a kind of a flotation agents. They are a kind of a flotation agent which enhance the surface properties of solids, which enhance the surface properties of solids, so that they can easily be adsorbed on solids. Because of adding this flotation agent, the contact angle increases and then they can easily float. So, that is the reason they are known as the flotation agents. But sometimes you need to have a kind of agents which improves the bubble formation, froth formation also. It is not necessary that always because of the solids surface characteristics that the flotation separation is takes place. It is also important in some applications. In some applications it is also important to make sure that a sufficient amount of froth is forming, right. If the solid materials are such a way that by generally by aerating or something like that, you may not able to generate enough amount of bubbles. So, under such conditions you can add some kind of reagent like promoters, collectors for flotation as you are using. Similarly, you can add some kind of reagents or chemicals which can enhance the froth formation. Okay. So, they are known as the frothing agents. These are required to prevent coalescence of air bubbles when they reach the surface of water, thereby maintaining a persistent froth. These agents must be sparingly soluble in water without appreciable ionization and be adsorbed in the interface between water and air, tending to reduce surface tension of water. Heavy alcohols such as hexyl alcohol possess these properties. If two air bubbles collide, the skins interface containing the water and alcohol stretch, but do not break, and then bubbles do not coalesce. That is the purpose of these frothing agents. Because at the point of contact, stretching of the film allows water molecules to come into the interface, increasing the surface tension at that point. Alcohols below amyl are too soluble and above octyl are too insoluble to make satisfactory frothing agents. So, one should be careful about these alcohols. Cryolic acid produces an unsatisfactory brittle froth unless used with a trace of petroleum. Pine oil, a mixture of compounds, and eucalyptus oil are good frothing agents requiring no additions. about 0.05 to 0.3 lb of frothing agent is used per ton of the solids treated in general. These are all kind of experimental observations that have been found by doing several experiments to improve this flotation process. Then there are some kind of modifying agents which are required, may be used, these modifying agents in general used to activate or depress adsorption of the filming agent, collector or promoters, whatever the filming agent that we have provided. So, sometimes it is also required to remove them, or sometimes you want to enhance their activity also. So, either to activate or to depress the adsorption of the filming agent, we may need some kind of modifying agents. What are they that we see? These modifying agents react with the surface of solid either by chemical action or by adsorption to change the character of the surface of one or more of the solids, so that thereby preventing adsorption of the collector or promoter on the solid. Addition of copper sulphate activates the surface of zinc sulphide, so that later is readily floated if a small quantity of copper sulphate is added in conditioning tank. This may be due to the formation of copper sulphide or perhaps metallic copper on the surface of the zinc sulphide. Another parameter is acidity or pH of the water is an important factor controlling or modifying the ease of filming, and in many cases flotation is possible only within a narrow range of pH. So, this another kind of modifying agent is that that modifies the pH, because few cases what happens, this flotation is good only under narrow range of pH. If you want to bring the pH of the system to that narrow range, so then you may need to add some more modifying agents. So, for this reason sodium hydroxide or calcium hydroxide may act as either activators or depressants depending upon conditions. Sodium cyanide is a depressant for iron sulphide if the latter is present with the lead sulphide. Okay. But after the PBC is floated, an increase in concentration of xanthate will float the iron sulphide as well. Depressants such as sodium silicate, sodium metaphosphate or soluble starch may be added when necessary to break up agglomerations of minerals and gangue. Okay. This is about the some basics about flotation process, flotation principles, and then flotation agents, froth forming agents, modifying agents. Those are the required information to know if we are undergoing a kind of flotation processes. So, you need to have information about these agents and then these processes, principles, etc. that we have seen. Now, what we see? We see a kind of summary of flotation reagents. Collectors, either by chemisorption or by physisorption, we can do this forming a layer of foreign material onto the solid surface of several molecule thick size, right. So, that can be done either by chemisorption or by physisorption. Increase natural hydrophobicity of surface and then increasing the separability of hydrophobic and then hydrophilic particles. Then some types of collectors are xanthates, potassium amyl xanthate, sodium isobutyl xanthate are good collectors. Dithiophosphates are also good collectors, like something like thiocarbamates, xanthozane formates, thionocarbamates, thiocarbonylites, etc. Then frothers are the frothing agents, pine oils, alcohols, polyglycols, polyoxyparaffins, xylenol, etc. are good frothing agents. Then modifiers like activators or depressants, etc. So, are also pH modifiers. So, some of the pH modifiers are lime, soda ash, caustic soda, acids such as hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, etc. Cationic modifiers are such as barium 2 plus, calcium 2 plus, copper 2 plus, lead 2 plus, etc. Anionic modifiers such as SiO3 2 minus, PO4 3 minus, Cn minus, CO3 2 minus, etc. are good modifiers. Organic modifiers are also available such as dextrine, starch, carboxymethyl cellulose, etc. are good modifiers. De-inking can also be enhanced by flotation. That is what we have seen as a kind of one of the example where flotation is also used other than the mineral industries. So, there are some chemicals are required for this de-inking, either as a kind of collectors or modifiers or froth agents, they are we see. So, in order to control the pH of the system, then in de-inking process you can use sodium silicate, sodium hydroxide, or calcium ion sources like hard water, lime or calcium chloride, etc. you can use. If you need collectors for such processes, fatty acids or fatty acid emulsions, fatty acid soap solutions can be used as a collectors for this de-inking process using the flotation principles. This is the summary of flotation reagents. Now, the references, we have several references. First one is Unit Operations of Chemical Engineering by McCabe, Smith and Harriet. The other one is Unit Operations of Particulate Solids, Theory and Practice by Ortega-Revas. Then Carlson and Richardson's Chemical Engineering Series, second volume by Richardson and Harker. Transport Processes and Unit Operations by C.J. John Copley. Unit Operations by Brown et al. And Principles of Unit Operations by Faust et al. So, this is a very good book for this chapter that we are discussing now on flotation. Some material you can also find in this book, Richardson and Harker. Some information is also available in this Ortega and Revas. Thank you.